this race. Give me my ribbon.
They want me dead. They want me dead. Put that price on my head.
No, no, no. They want me dead or alive.
From ragtime to Beyonce, black music has always been a prominent staple of American culture, starting in the early 1900s with ragtime, then jazz, and even rock and roll, which borrowed heavily from black musicians. What was and is always considered distinctly American music can almost always be traced back to its origins in the black community. Throughout the years, black music has always been both an influencer and a reflection of the black experience and the events of the time. But no type of music captures this as much as the genre of hip-hop and rap. From its conception in the early 80s, has reshaped and redefined what it means to be a black American. It has captured and portrayed the lives and struggles of black Americans, started and emulated movements in social progress, challenged the status quo, and has acted as a unifying force for the black community.
Okay. So to address the topic of hip hop and the African American community, it's important to understand the history of hip hop and what its roots are set in. So essentially, the history of hip hop is rooted in telling the story of inner city African Americans starting in the 70s. So hip hop at its roots is telling the story of the African American community. So in and of itself, it is a living, breathing story of the African American community today.
Have you forgotten that once we were brought here, we were robbed of our names, robbed of our language. We lost our religion, our culture, our God. And many of us, by the way we act, we even lost our mind.
You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge.
Of all eras of hip-hop, I think the late 80s to early 90s are the most important to hip-hop, for two reasons. One, this was the era when hip-hop as you know it today began to form. Two, it laid the foundation for everything to come. Often this era is referenced as the beginning of the golden age of hip-hop, practically because of the artists that came out of New York. You had artists like LL Cool J, Run DMC, Public Enemy, KRS-One, De La Soul, and A Tribe Called Quest. You had all these trailblazers evolve and create what hip-hop means today. At this point, hip-hop was new. It began to develop as an art form, so there was no rules and everything was just new. Hip-hop being something primarily created by African Americans, of course, was an outlet for us to express our feelings, whether it be sadness, joy, pain, and excitement.
So, hip-hop and black music in general, it was our way back in the day, like early hip-hop, this is our way to express what our life was like. Like with NWA, like they were speaking their life and how that affected them. It was like an outlet to get the mainstream public to realize, hey, this is what's going on in our communities. This is what we're about. This is what's happening to us. Y'all might not see it, but this is what's happening.
To it all. Here is a true tale. Why the ones that deal, all the ones that fail, yeah.
Today we have social media and cell phones to get our message out there. But back then, reporters weren't going into these communities to ask these people how they felt. You had to put yourself out there for white America to shine a light on you. And hip-hop was Twitter before we had Twitter. It was a way to spread information and to entertain. In my opinion, no two albums perfectly encapsulate this era. Quite like Public Enemy's It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, and NWA's Straight Outta Compton. These two albums put white America on notice because they were so provocative with their lyrics and the experience they had talked about. Knights of the Living Bassheads addressed the crack epidemic raging through the African American communities. She Watches Channel Zero was talking about the dangers of watching junk television and what it does to the mind. And if the police was speaking on the harassments and brutality African Americans suffered at the hands of police. These forms of art were not only to entertain, but to educate and disseminate information. Hip-hop was a living, breathing social media.
In relation to hip-hop and rap, like from the 80s, it was very much, I think, about people experimenting and like finding out that like rap was an actual art form. Because I think coming from like disco, people weren't terribly familiar with the idea of like saying lyrics in time to an actual beat. And so it became really, really popular in the 80s and into the early 90s, where it kind of, I think, took on a completely different sampling. And you had people like Busta Rhymes and Missy Elliott and like Q-Tip and Common doing like these amazing, I mean, to this day, I still think that like Missy Elliott and Busta Rhymes are probably two of the most innovative rappers to ever exist on the planet Earth, because people still are not as creative as they are today. But yeah, it went from, I think initially people were using it as a weapon. Black people specifically were using that to talk about white fear and like how people were afraid of them. And in the 90s, people got very comfortable with it and they embraced more of the hip hop lifestyle.
And it wasn't meant for anybody to understand. We were doing something new. You understand what I'm saying? Ain't nobody brought no damn Uzis on stage and talking black power and that kind of stuff prior to Public Enemy. Wasn't nothing black going on. That's when I hear these cats now, and I'm like, bruh, no. You understand what I'm saying? And it wasn't about being violent. It wasn't about being aggressive towards white America. It was about holding up the mirror to white America and saying, look, this is what you kind of created. This is what's going on out there. We're trying to come up with a solution to a problem that you created.
Hip-hop between the 90s to early 2000s was one of the massive shifts into mainstream media. The golden era, as it was called, the turn of the millennium, called for a new sound, a new theme, something that was different from the hood politics theme of the previous decade. Most of the 90s artists maintained a strict gangsta persona that reflected the dangerous hood culture that they experienced. But the upcoming generation lived a different reality, and the music reflected that. One big contribution to the change in hip-hop was the internet. Media increased visibility for artists, allowing them to be creative with their presentation.
Girls, you got a flock. I can tell by your charm and your arm, but I'm looking for the one. Have you seen her? My psychic told me she have a like Serena.
You look at hip hop today, for example, and you look at the subject matter. The prominent subject matter in most hip hop songs today is very different than the mid 90s, the early 90s, like 92, 93 when Public Enemy was at its height. It was just a different mind state at the time.
Right, because America was different. Because you kind of figure mid 80s, 86, 85, 86, you had AIDS, Africans in deep shit, or America's doing the shit, and crack, chemical and biological warfare hit at the same time. So yeah, things were going to be different. So we came up out of the turbulent, born in the 60s, came through the whack-ass fucking 70s with disco, where they crushed everything culturally speaking, and that cultural expression. So by the time late 70s hit, we were dancing in the street and spinning our heads with on cardboard boxes with boom boxes, wearing what we thought was hip hop gear. You understand what I'm saying? By the time 80s hit, we thoroughly got a grasp on it, and we said, okay, we about to bring the pain. Then America came with the chemical and biological warfare with crack and AIDS, and we said, okay, we got a fight on our hands.
What happened at the New Orleans? Bitch, I'm back. I'm popular the man.
As we enter deeper into the 2000s until today, hip-hop has had an overwhelmingly big influence on the black community in America, as well as society as a whole. Hip-hop is more than just music. Hip-hop is a culture. Over the past 3 decades, hip-hop has influenced and uplifted black America. It has spoken up for generations and provided a group of people to have a voice and deliver a message.
I did not come to play with you hoes. I came to slay, bitch. I like cornbread and collard greens, bitch. Oh yes, you best to believe it.
I think that music, like artists like Kendrick Lamar have really showed what it's like to be black in America, because even if you're successful, you still go through many of the struggles that regular people go through. So they kind of portray it as if no matter how high up you get up there, you will never really feel like you have a place. You always feel like an outsider.
I feel like music as a general is like an output or like an outlet for people to discuss their struggles living in America, how it can be very unjust, especially for minorities in the black community. I think it's just that the government plays a part of them feeling that way, and I truly believe that music is something where you truly understand the struggles that they could go through. Not only struggles, just experiencing what it's like to grow up as a minority.
So with the black experience specifically, I think music has been a great time marker, like hip-hop in the 90s, some of the protest music that came out recently, Kendrick Lamar's All Right, Marvin Gaye's album when he got back from war, or his breakup, I forgot how that story goes. But I feel like music has been great in communicating that experience because it captures the emotions that people live through and marks them in time. And a lot of those emotions are usually like deep pain and like stuff with the police, like YG, like fuck Donald Trump, like all of that. It captures moments in time and communicates that across generations.
I feel like there's also the story towards gangbanging and hustling to the point where a lot of people face hardships on the streets, and the only way for them to realize or to explain how hard it is through song. So with black people in music, often struggle is the main word that joins the two together. And for Black America in music, to really portray that struggle, portray the hardships and all the success through it all, I think that's one of the main things that actually describes us all.
I want more, but can't get more, because I'm more. While pale hands keep locking up doors, I'ma grab a ball, try to figure out how to score. But you label me, that's all I'm good for. Young homie from the projects, so you know he's still work in progress. Young homie from the projects, keep pushing work just to make a progress. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. Blonde hair, pale skin keep the popo away. So leave me alone while I pray for my brothers and sisters in West Baltimore to get their Michael Jackson on as they try to beat it before the cops beat him. Cuff him, strip him, and eventually kill him. Largest organized crime syndicate lives in the beautiful city of West Baltimore. Riots and looting vindicate the feeling they can't take it anymore. Young black mother with her sons, chasing the gold she saw in the sun. America, the chosen one. I thought when I came to you all my problems would be done, but all you did was bring new ones. You didn't accept me, you didn't like where I'm from. My culture is what you made fun. Sometimes I hate where I'm from. Why didn't I sound like them? Why didn't I have any friends? The kids kept saying. But could you blame them? You hate what you don't understand, so don't lie while on the stand. Say you want to be a part of my family, you only want to be a part of my family.